David Barry, reporting for Jewish Online Magazine, broadcasting from Jhub in North West London. I have pleasure in presenting highlights of a talk and a panel discussion about a new book edited by Russell Collins, The Community's Lover's Guide to the Jewish Community.
Blessed with a lot of things, but probably the key for me, which pulls everything in this book together, is tradition. I would sing the song from Fiddler on the Roof, but I'm not going to. It's really tradition, and that can be a weight, but it can also be an inspiration as well, and it grounds us. It allows these innovations, in my mind, to spring up from a common and shared tradition and understanding, something that binds us together. And I think if we've got one thing that we can share with the rest of our community in this country and beyond, is that creating those shared norms and traditions is, for me, the key to having these great ideas and stories spring up afterwards. That was kind of my late night vision, but there's people in this room who are putting that late night vision into action on the ground, so I wanted to invite them across here to sit on the panel. The question which I posed at our panel was, how can we really describe and attribute any success to this curious blend, the curious dynamic between tradition and innovation?
From which end of the table?
Let us start from Shoshana onwards.
Good, but then I can welcome you all to Jhub and just say this is a project of Paris Foundation, and the building that you're in is owned by the William Paris Group, that wanted to provide a space to the community, not just the Jewish community, but the community at large. And this ground floor of the building was given over to become Jhub, which is a center for social change and innovation. If you see these hanging around, you can take one, you can become a member of Jhub. This is a community space. What you have to do is agree with our values. And our values are about multiplicity, diversity of voices, around a commitment that we have to social change, to the fundamental Jewish value of what we call tikkun olam, of making the world a better place. Not everybody here is Jewish, but everybody agrees that those values are at the core of what it means to be a citizen of this country.
My name is Joel, and I am the Director of International Programming for Moishe House. We're an organisation that give a partial rent subsidy to groups of Jews, mostly in their 20s, to run, as Ali explained a little bit, run events in their own home for the wider community. We give them some of their rent, we give them a programming budget for them to put the programs together. And then they run between 5 and 15 programs per month in their own flat or house share.
So my name's Laura Billings. I work with Tessie Britton, one half of Social Spaces. Tessie sends her apologies that she's not here this evening. She's not feeling very well, but she did want to send hellos and congratulations. And that was the first thing I wanted to say, really, was well done to Russell and well done to everyone who's been part of making this beautiful thing. And thank you also to Shoshana and Jhub for all their support. This is one of actually almost 60 editions of Community Lovers that are being produced around the world at the minute. The inspiration for them was Tessie's first book, Handmade, which was examples of projects, as Russell said, that seemed to be doing something a little bit differently, seemed to be very positive, very creative, very collaborative, and from that, the idea for the series came. So Rotterdam was the first one that came out, Hackney was second, Amsterdam was third, Utrecht just pipped Russell to the post to become fourth, Jewish Community's fifth, and Birmingham is coming out shortly. So there'll be 6, and that'll be there with green and blue. That's the whole rainbow, and then we start again at the beginning.
The goal, I would say, in terms of that balance that I like to think the Jewish community at its best can do, is to manage this innovation, tradition, polarity in a very conscious, self-reflective way, so that we're not calling names to the other side, denigrating the other side, but we're actually maximizing the upside of both poles.
I will add one thing, which I think is where I wanted to go, which is it's about the both, and it's about creating something which is really inclusive. So the reason why I got so enthusiastic about being part of Moishe House is because it was a community, it is a community. When I was a resident there, it was a community that it's very engaged in what it means to be Jewish, but it's also a very open and creative community. And there's that combination of creativity with engagement that I find so attractive.
It'd be great to have one of those books on religious communities, on churches, synagogues, mosques, Hindu temples, whatever. Because I think they're some of the most difficult organisations to get right. But they're also organisations in which there is an enormous amount of potential, because so much, I mean, just in terms of the buildings, so much is locked up within them.
It occurred to me when you said about doing an edition on religious organisations that there is an edition coming out on libraries, and I think it's a bit of a jump, but there aren't an awful lot of public spaces that are left for people to do these types of activities in, and libraries and religious buildings were sort of the last two standing, really, and they're both changing an awful lot, and I think it is a really fascinating area to look at, and if anyone wants to step forward to edit the Community Lovers Guide to Religious Institutions, it would be fascinating.
So that it was probably about 2 years ago now, and it was actually upstairs in this building. I remember being part of a roundtable discussion where the rabbis of some of the pretty sort of mainstream synagogues were sitting there, as were representatives from the independent minyanim, like the grassroots Jews, and there was a very vibrant conversation that happened where I felt like the positive sides of those two poles were talking to each other. And the fact that there was interest in those people coming together and having that conversation really gave me hope that that polarity could be managed within a synagogal structure. And that was because the leadership of both of those sides recognized that each side had something to contribute. So I think actually one of the recommendations I would have is to try to convene people who constructively represent one of those poles and recognize the value of the other pole. And I do think there are people in the community who, maybe not enough, maybe we need to shout louder, that we're not at each other's throats, but that actually we're trying to figure out how to collaborate together.
It's about conversation, and so making sure that all the kinds of projects that are featured in this whole series of books are not seen as a threat to what else is out there. To say that there are fantastic things about the stability side of the spectrum, and that when they come together with the more creative or change side of the spectrum, that actually then you get the whole picture. So the involvement on a very practical level, the involvement of more mainstream traditional institutions and projects in the innovative projects, and the active involvement on the side of the mainstream projects in bringing on board some of the more innovative, change-focused projects.
In terms of getting the information out and getting it wider, I mean, I think things like this do a really fantastic job, because I had not heard of any of these things in here before, and now I know about all of them. So even kind of putting this together, and the idea behind the books is that they are really visual. The story, each chapter isn't too long, so they're quite accessible. So I mean, we'll certainly be doing everything we can to encourage people to get a copy and read it online to help.
I'll say one more thing, which is I'm going to ask you to join me in doing a very, very traditional thing in a slightly innovative way, because none of us have a champagne glass in our hands. But had we had a champagne glass in our hands, we would be finding some innovative way to raise it, to Russell for not only having the idea to do this, because lots of people have really good ideas, but you had the idea, you pulled us all together, you cracked the whip in such a beautiful, gentle, lovely way that none of us even felt the sting, and you brought us together and allowed our community to create this incredible book. So to Russell.